Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, OP divorces his wife due to her lies and infidelity. They met by chance, fell in love, and married within a year. Initially harmonious, their relationship soured when he lost his job and she demanded interest in household expenses. He discovers her cheating and ends the marriage. He finds a better job, while a plan exposes her infidelity, leading to divorce. He's now cautious about relationships. Now let's get into the story. I, 31 male, recently divorced my ex-wife, 28 female, because of her lies and infidelity. My wife and I first met in a shopping mall. I had gone to the mall to get some items since I shopped only twice a month. As I was about to leave the mall that day, my wife came to me and asked if I could look at her car, which had refused to turn on. While helping her check her car, I realized that her problem was minor and I helped her fix it. Originally, I had no intentions of becoming friends with her or anything because I only wanted to help her and leave, but in the process of helping her fix her car, we had a great conversation and we ended up exchanging contacts. After that day, we didn't see each other again until a week later. I had forgotten entirely about her, and if she had not called me again, things would not have gotten so serious between us. Long story short, my wife and I started going out on our free days, and as we got to know ourselves better, love happened. We dated for only a year and married afterward. Before my wife and I settled down, she told me about her previous relationship and I told her about mine. According to my wife, her rich ex-boyfriend maltreated and physically abused her. They dated for 4 years. But in terms of taking care of her, giving her money and gifts, he was pretty generous with that. From what I understood, my wife claimed she had to leave her abusive ex-boyfriend because she was tired of being cheated on and abused. I understood her because I had a friend in an abusive relationship too, and I saw how hurt she was all the time. I even assured my wife that our marriage would be her safe haven and I would never raise my hands on her, no matter how angry I would be, and I meant it. I had never hit a woman before and didn't plan on starting with her. Since my wife was already living with me from the 5th month of our relationship, being married was not so different, except for us wearing our wedding bands and the pictures we had decorated at home. For the first few months of our marriage, everything was so smooth. My wife showered me with so much love and made me feel like the only man in the world. Since the house I lived in was given to me by my late dad, we didn't need to pay rent. We only had to pay utility bills, groceries, and gas. Honestly, I was the one who took care of the bills. I earned enough money to take care of both of us, and I was comfortable doing that. I never asked her about her salary or what she did with her money. I felt it was my responsibility to take care of her and the bills since she was already used to that lifestyle. 1 year passed, and we were still living in harmony, except for a couple of issues with my work from the 10th month of our marriage. Something happened at the organization I worked at, and for a whole month I wasn't paid. Not being paid affected a lot of things at home because I couldn't do the things I used to do before. Initially, when we realized at work that we wouldn't be paid for that month, I wasn't bothered because I believed my wife would take care of the bills at home until things returned to normal, but I was so wrong. That day, I went home to tell my wife I wasn't paid, thinking she would pacify me and take over things for a while, but she shocked me. She started being so dramatic and then made a fuse out of it. She asked me what we would do, and I told her to take care of the house until things were normal. Guess what, guys? My wife said she would only agree to help with the house if I agreed to pay interest on all the money she would spend. When she said so, I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She meant every word she said. Her response shocked me, considering everything I had done for her since we started dating until our marriage. Honestly, I would not have believed it if I had been told she would say something like that. Ultimately, I agreed to her terms, and she counted every penny she would spend and gave me her interest rate. As if paying interest and refunding her money was not enough, that same week, My wife's attitude towards me changed entirely. Before I had issues with my job, she used to be so clingy and would repeatedly profess her love to me, but once she started paying the bills at home, everything changed. She no longer allowed me to touch her, and she changed from the talkative she used to be to a very cold person. I noticed all these changes, and when I confronted her about it, she said it was her new mood, and that if I had any problem with it, I should deal with it. Even how she talked to me changed, and respect was gone. Everything happened so fast, and in a twinkle of an eye, I didn't know who my wife was anymore. To make things worse, the company I worked for had to lay off some people, and I had to go after getting my salary. When this happened, I didn't tell my wife about it, because she was already making stains with her at home unbearable. I told my friends about it, and thankfully, one of them reached out to someone who had just opened a fancy restaurant, and I got a job there. I worked as a waiter for almost 2 months at this fancy restaurant and didn't tell my wife about it. The pay was smaller compared to my previous salary, but it was better than doing nothing and being insulted by the woman who used to tell me I was the air she breathed. As for the bills at home, after 2 months of her adding her insane interest rate to the money she spent, I had to stop that, and we started splitting 50-50. Even with us splitting the bills, our marriage did not go back to how it used to be, but I wasn't even bothered about that because my only focus was to keep applying for jobs until I got a better job than serving at the restaurant. Somehow, I believed my wife's respect would return after I got back to my old financial status. One day, I was at the restaurant trying to sort the orders of customers that just come in when I spotted my wife walking into the restaurant. When I saw her, my heart skipped because I thought she had gotten information that I was working there. But to my greatest surprise, she walked to a table where a man was already waiting for her, and they lip-locked each other. My heart broke instantly, and when I realized it was her ex-boyfriend, who she told me she had cut all contact with, I nearly peed in my pants. One of my coworkers working there before me saw the shock on my face and asked if everything was all right. It took me a few seconds to respond to him, and when I did, I told him about my wife and ex-boyfriend. He was also surprised and confused, but understood better when I told him my wife didn't know I was working there. The coworker that talked to me and I were close, so he devised a plan for me. After we agreed on the plan, he went to take their orders. The plan was he would go and take their order, and once their food was ready, I would go and serve them while he would record everything from behind. I did as we had planned. I took the food to my wife and her ex-boyfriend without breaking my stride. When she looked in my direction and saw me, her face turned pale, and she spat out the red wine she was drinking out of surprise. I ended up leaving the food in front of her and her ex-boyfriend, and while I took my time to do that, she literally froze and could not say a word. Later that day, she did not come back home. I knew she wouldn't, so I gleefully packed her stuff and left them outside. The next morning, she came to beg and give her usual cheater's line of "Baby, I can explain. It's not what you think." This was the longest sentence she had said to me in days, and if I had not seen her, she probably would have kept cheating on me. I felt generous with my words, so I told her to return to her rich ex-boyfriend and enjoy her toxic relationship. She didn't say much after that. She just packed her stuff and left. I even doubt her tears were real. Weeks later, we divorced and everything ended between us. Luckily, for months after I worked at the restaurant, I landed a good job with a juicy offer. I even forgot to add that my coworker and I posted my wife's video online. We covered her boyfriend's face but left hers for the world to see, and it went viral. I wouldn't like to be specific, but she's made it to the meme section, and each time I remember the look on her face on that video, it makes me laugh. I couldn't even cry over her. I moved on like nothing had happened because she had badly hurt and disrespected me in the past few months. And the two things I couldn't take from a woman were cheating and disrespect. I'm fine now, but I'm in no rush to be in a relationship because most women are horrible pretenders. They are so good at saying, "I'll be your ride or die," but they leave when something happens. Today's second story. In this story, a couple met on a dating app 8 years ago, initially not seeking a serious relationship. Despite one being polyamorous and the other monogamous, they fell in love. After marriage, Suspicions arose during a work trip, leading to a confrontation and eventual divorce due to infidelity. They now live separately. Interestingly, the ex-wife's co-worker's wife reached out to the ex-husband, sparking potential new complications. Now let's get into the story. I, 33, met my wife, 31, female, 8 years ago on a dating app. At the time, neither of us was looking for anything serious. We were both young, and we wanted to make the best of our youth while we could. But then we fell for each other, and all of that went out the window. We wanted to be with each other all the time, and things quickly got serious. I knew before she and I even met that my wife was polyamorous. At the time, it wasn't something I cared much about. I just went into our relationship thinking it was going to be a casual, fun time. I was definitely curious about what that was and how that worked in her life. But personally, I've always been monogamous. My wife told me one day when things started to get serious that for the first time in years, she was only thinking about one person, and that was me. There was a bit of a disconnect between us when we first started exclusively dating because I felt like I was taking something away from her through monogamy. However, she assured me that it was what she wanted. We had some ups and downs, and we were able to work it out to be together. Eventually, I proposed to her, and we got married. Some of the people in my family were not at all understanding of polyamory, and they were practically betting that I would end up getting divorced. Before I was with my wife, I didn't know much about it, and I might have thought the same thing. But she explained everything to me in such a way that I understood what it was, and I trusted that should she ever have any issues with monogamy, that she would come to me and we could talk about them. About 3 years into our marriage, I got the opportunity of a lifetime for work. It required me to travel abroad for 3 months to do some on-site filming for an advertising agency. They were pretty much paying me to travel all over Asia and visit some of the expenses paid. Hotels, meals, airfare, everything you could. After the first couple of days, I was back. She started staying late at work, and it honestly felt like she was actively avoiding me. At that point, I had let a lot of my insecurities about what was going on with our relationship pile up, and I confronted her about it when she returned home. She told me that I was being obnoxious with my accusations. In fact, she ended up guilt-tripping me for why she was staying late at work. She told me it was because she had to take time off work to visit me in Tokyo, as I pressured her to do. We got into a huge argument about that, and I ended up sleeping on the couch. Just the following day, which happened to be a Saturday, she told me she had to go to work for some last-minute troubleshooting at the office. In all the time we had been together, she had never worked a Saturday. I think it was at that point that I really thought something was going on. Lovely restaurant. She thought I was surprising her with a nice date. Toward the end of the meal, she asked me what prompted the gesture, so I figured I might as well tell her. I pulled out the papers and slid them across the table to her. She was shocked and hysterical. She tried to contain herself, but really it was quite the scene. Other diners were watching us while she started crying. I explained why and told her I saw the pictures and I wasn't going to be with a cheater. She tried to tell me I was misinterpreting them and that she hadn't cheated, but I didn't believe it. I just left the restaurant, leaving her to pick up the bill. We got divorced and now we're living separately and have no contact with each other at all. Funnily enough, her coworker's wife actually messaged me one day and asked to get together. We kind of hit it off. Things are still complicated because the wounds are so fresh, but there could be something there.